Okay, Jose. So let's go on to your next wine.
Yeah, okay. Well, the next in the lineup, we've got the Chardonnay 2022. And I'm really excited about this wine. This wine is just about to be released.
Okay.
So this was made with Essex, fruit from Essex, which is getting a bit of a name for itself for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay for still wines. Of course, we use Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in our sparkling wines as well, but the extra sunshine hours and temperature that we get over in Essex, and also it's the driest area of the UK, enables us to get to ripeness and flavor levels that are making some excellent still wines. And so the grapes for this come from Clay Hill Vineyard in the Crouch Valley. And yeah, it was 2022 was a wonderful year, really warm, and has enabled us to make a Chardonnay. So this is clocked in at 13.5% natural alcohol.
Is it really?
So I don't chaptalize. So it's at those levels of ripeness that you would expect from Chablis, from Burgundy, those sort of places. And it's an area that I garner a lot of inspiration from. And this wine was made as an influence and from a trip to Burgundy, where I was very lucky enough to go and visit Domaine Rouleau. And now that is a producer that is known for making Chardonnays in a very reductive style. And what I mean by that is they're not sort of these sort of rich, oaky, full-bodied, round, voluptuous Chardonnays. They're very sort of full of flavor, but with this tension and this purity and this nervousness in the acidity. And that I really like that expression of Chardonnay. It's something that I think that English fruit is really apt for. And so that's the style that I went for. And this is a 100% fermented in old oak Burgundian barrels. And then it's aged in those barrels on gross lees, and actually is a very simple winemaker. I don't do a lot to this wine. It literally ferments and I leave it. But it's with the quality of fruit that we received, it is enabled to work in that sort of transparent way, and it really is a transparent look back to the fruit. So on the palate, there is some nice, on the nose rather, is some nice stone fruit. You've got all the lemon citrus that you would expect from Chardonnay, but it's got this lovely sort of struck flint nature to it, there's a stoniness to it. And then on the palate, it's sort of almost, there's an electricity and nice, as much as the acidity that sort of carries the sort of flavors on this journey as you drink it, and then it finishes with this sort of arrowhead sort of purity at the end. And so very excited about this wine, very excited to see what it might do with a bit of bottle aging as well, if it sticks around long enough. But already had a little bit of praise from some nice write-ups from a lot of people, so I don't expect this to stick around very long, but I'll certainly be keeping a few bottles back to see how it ages and to try and learn again from it. I on reflection, I think this was all done with old Burgundian barrels. I actually think this probably would have benefited from a barrel or two of new oak, just to maybe round it off a little bit more, give it even another layer, another dimension. But no, very, very happy with this. This is my first still Chardonnay that I've made in this country, and yeah, it's certainly a style that I'd like to drink.
It's incredibly smooth. That was the first thing I picked up on the palate. It doesn't have any of that kind of racing acidity that sometimes you can get even from Chardonnay. And I think serving it at the right temperature as well really helps, just because it's so soft, it's very round. There's actually a surprising amount of body to the wine as well. It's got some lovely texture to it, and all of the fruits are very well balanced. There's nothing too sharp or acidic about it. It's very soft, and that I think makes this a very approachable wine. I think this would be a great one for the consumer to try, who might be a bit put off by, sometimes our whites can be a they might interpret them as being too acidic, which is actually just a really nice edge to have for food pairing. This is just soft, it's round, it's smooth. It's, as I said, it's very approachable. I think you've done well with this one.
Yeah, thank you. It's I mean, again, you know, it's a big shout to the grower, and the area that this fruit comes from, being able to show Chardonnay in this country, getting to these levels of natural ripeness.
Yeah.
And so so when you get grapes like that as a winemaker, it's like manna from heaven. You don't have to do anything, and it very rarely comes along like that. But as I said earlier, that as a winemaker, to take high quality grapes, grading that quality as much as possible. When the grapes are that good, you're afforded this ability to really sort of work with a lightness of touch that showcases the fruit and where it came from. And I think that really does this. And what's wonderful about Essex is that whereas the big difference from, say, Chablis or Burgundy, where you're talking about a calcareous soil that gives a sort of a tightness and a power to the wine, what we have up in Essex is this alluvial clay, which adds a natural richness to the Chardonnay, and a roundness that perhaps if we grew the Chardonnay on chalk in this country would be a completely different, very, very pure linear wine, whereas this is quite generous because of the soil that it's come from. And that's what I mean about this transparency. It's showcasing Chardonnay coming from that alluvial area on a nice warm year, and it has all those hallmarks that speak of vintage and speak of place, and that's why I'm really excited about this wine, to see what might happen with it as it ages.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I'm not surprised. So let's. I'm keen to try your next one now.
Yeah, I'm keen to drink more of that, but if you insist. Yeah. So next one is exciting, actually. Yeah, it's a bit of fun as well. So the next one we've got is the Night Tripper. Nice electric purple label. So the reason for that color being that this is a Pinot Gris based wine. Pinot Gris, also known as Pinot Grigio, most people know as a white wine, and is often processed and produced as a white wine. But actually, Pinot Gris has these beautiful, amazing purple skins, and they're one of the prettiest grapes you can see in the vineyard. And some of the nicest wines I've had over the last few years are skin macerated Pinot Gris. And what happens when you do that is it picks up some of this color that you can see in the glass. It's almost a rosé, deep copper rosé in the glass, and that is from the skins of the Pinot Gris. And this wine is if there's a wine that embodies Vagabond's willingness and want to experiment, this is the wine. So the story of this wine quickly is that we buy some of our fruit from Clay Hill in Essex, and this was an extra parcel of fruit that I wasn't expecting to get. But there was some extra crop, and he asked if I'd like it, and it was a mixture of about half a ton of Pinot Gris, a combination of Pinot Gris and Sauvignon Blanc. And because I wasn't expecting these grapes, I had nowhere in the winery to put it. And slight story aside, a little insight into how winemaking works in an urban environment. I had nowhere to put this wine. And it's not like you have a big shed where you can just bring in another tank and create some extra space. There is literally no extra space. So I phoned up my good friend Sergio down the road, who's a Black Book winery, one of the urban winery United wineries, and he had a spare Dolab plastic tub, big square sort of half a ton tub. So if you were around Battersea last September or October, you would have seen a Skoda with a roof rack driving through Battersea with a big plastic tub on the roof up towards Battersea Power Station, where I had to unload it. And once it was unloaded and into the winery, there's nowhere to park around Battersea Power Station. But once I was in the winery, essentially that was my mission completed. I completely forgot about my car on the double yellow lines with hazard warning lights going. And after a long day in the winery that day, and the taxi home, and another day in the winery the next day, I finally remembered that my car had been there. Luckily, only a flat battery and a parking ticket. But anyway, that's the sort of story that goes along with urban winemaking and this wine in particular. But so it ended up being a tub where we put in the Pinot Gris and the Sauvignon Blanc together. We put them, we destemmed them. So it was just the berries, crushed berries, and they were skin macerated and fermented together on skins for 7 days. And then they were pressed off to a barrel, and it was only 1 barrel's worth. So this is a limited release of about 270 odd bottles. And it's an absolute experiment. I don't know of another skin macerated co-fermented Pinot Gris Sauvignon Blanc on the market. If there is one, love to know about it, because I think this really works. Pinot Gris as a skin macerated wine brings amazing flavors, but often what happens is there's a high glycerol content, and that gives a lot of body and weight to it, but it will often become a bit flabby. And the combination with the Sauvignon Blanc brings this acidity and this zing to it, this sort of a prickliness to the acidity that brightens the whole thing up. And so you get these sort of baked rhubarb characteristics in the Pinot Gris, and there's just this lovely, lively citrus acidity from the Sauvignon Blanc underneath. It's not a wine for everyone. It's a bit bonkers. It's a bit out there, but you know, that's the nice thing about having the experiment. And I'll be surprised if this has already been released and it's already almost sold out. And I think half the staff have bought most of it. So, but
You're
it's
absolutely right.
It's something we're going to run with.
Sorry, Jose, I was going to say you're absolutely right about the. Sorry, you said it was Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, how that's given it this lovely zip of acidity and this backbone to it, because you can kind of taste how it might have been a bit loose, a bit flabby. Sometimes people say, but it gives it this edge. It is quite literally giving it backbone, and it makes it so much more appealing. It's almost like there's a crunch on the tongue.
Yeah, and
it's
like
adds to it.
Yeah, it's like a lot of baked and spice fruit up front with the Gris, and then this lovely citrus hit of fresh apple comes back behind it from the Sauvignon Blanc. And actually, I didn't, think that it would necessarily work in my head, and it was always an experiment to see what would happen. But it's something we're now going to run with, and the Night Tripper will now become a sort of symbol of this kind of experimentation. And I think that's really, really important, not just for Vagabond. I think for the UK, this idea that the UK, after 20 or 30 years in the modern era, has found what it's best at, and now we have to stop experimenting and all adhere to PDO rules and things like that, and there's nothing left to experiment with. It is just ludicrous, and we've got so much more to learn about what can come out and what unique wines and expressions can come out of this country. And so this is playing to that. And if I get offered some extra fruit that I wasn't expecting, as well as we'll get the same fruit that we got last year, but if there's another variety, say we'll get some Muscat or some Riesling or something, a little bit of that, and we'll throw that in as well, and we'll see what happens. And if it turns out to be an undesirable wine, then so be it. And we learn, but you don't learn unless you cross the line, and that's what it'll always be. And a little story on the name is a little nod to that experimentation, is that the working title was originally Gris Gris Gumbo, and that's a nod to a musician called Dr. John, who did he was a New Orleans musician, and he wrote an album called Gris Gris Gumbo, a Gris Gris from the New Orleans is a sort of a voodoo, and he was always known for this experimentation, and one of his stage names was the Night Tripper. And I was reading a book about him at the time when we were making this wine, and it seemed to fit with his sort of pushing the boundaries of music. And so yeah, it's sort of it's sort of conceptual idea as a wine that won't be the same every year, and hopefully people will come and sort of come on this journey with us to find out what the most wacky combinations of grapes that we can get our hands on, chuck them together and see what we come up with.
But that is the beauty of being an urban winemaker. Something we've touched on a few times is the ability to explore, to develop, to experiment. You're taking these grapes that you wouldn't necessarily get, and yeah, I mean, I love how, as you say, you have Black Book pitching in by helping you source this as well, and you've created a unique wine that is Vagabond. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun being, you know, I've got Sergio down the road at Black Book. I've got Alex across the river in Fulham at London Crew, and Warwick's a bit further away up in the east, trendy old east. But you know, it is fun. Just you know, it's fun and supportive. The fact, you know, we can bounce ideas off each other. We all make wine in completely unique ways. But you know, getting together for a beer and discussing and molding each other's philosophies and creating ideas makes it's quite a nice environment to sort of be mucking about with things. And because we don't we don't all are in our own vineyards, again, getting access to these sort of little parcels of fruits that you weren't expecting to, and just to play around with it's fun. It's fun, and at the end of the day, we're making wine. It's not a serious job, and we're lucky to be doing it. But you know, to have fun with it and you know, not get too serious is what it's all about.
As you say, that's the playful element that you can have as an urban winemaker. This freedom and ability to explore. Yeah. So I'm really keen now. Let's crack on.
Yeah. We'll push on now, and now we're back into classics territory here. We've got the 2022 Pinot Noir, sticking in Essex again here. So I spoke earlier about the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir, these Burgundian varieties that are growing well for still wines in Essex. And this is Clay Hill Vineyard, and this is Pinot Noir. For those that are into their geekiness, actually is derived from the Jura region of France, so not Burgundian or Côte d'Or, but a Juran clone, and it which makes these slightly paler of Pinot Noir, gives rise to this refreshing, very red berry, lighter Pinot Noir that actually works well. Apologies if I didn't tell you to do it, but it really benefits from just being slightly chilled, sort of, you know, down to 16, 18 degrees. Allow that sort of freshness and crunchiness of it to show. It was a learning process making this wine, and what I wanted to experiment with. This is the first Pinot that I've made as a winemaker in England, still Pinot, and I wanted to experiment with the things that I'd learned from Burgundian influence about the use of stems, the use of whole bunches, and so we did 4 different fermentations of combinations of different stems, crushed fruit, whole bunches, just to learn what the best way forward was. And that's another thing about Vagabond, is that the wines are almost, they're byproducts of learning and in introspection and just interest in wine. And if I feel I haven't learned anything in a vintage, it's almost a pointless vintage, whether there's wine or not. So the wines are about learning, and then next year, what we learn, we implement, and we try and learn some more. So it was all blended back together, and what it gives you is this very light summer red drinking, you know, barbecue. It's 12%, so it's not heavy. It's fresh and vibrant and alive in the palate. And you could, you know, sort of see yourself getting through a bottle of this, you know, before you sort of really knew what would happen. Whereas sort of some of those denser, heavier Pinot Noirs can leave a bit of little bit of weight in too heavy on the palate. But yeah, this is yeah, it's more of a dance along the palate rather than anything else.
It's I'm really enjoying this one. It's got a wonderful like raspberry, but then mixed with blackcurrant. There's lots of fruit there, but not too fresh. It's very soft. It's something I mentioned a few times, like when you have like red berries that are slightly warm. Again, this temperature is key. You get much more from the fruit. And like with this wine, there's so much more coming out. It's very, very pleasant. There's also a nice bit of like edge, backbone and edge to it. It's almost like a sweet beetroot element to it, which is giving it some texture. This is
it's interesting you say that, actually, because
go on.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Classic delay on internet connections. No, it's interesting you say that beetroot, because I get that an earthiness to it as well, and a spice, and that is very much something that the stems bring to the wine, in this extra layer, this extra dimension of freshness, of framework, but this earthiness and this complexity. So that means it's not just this fruit bomb, but it has these layers, and that's what I try and do with the wines, is to build layers and textures that sort of frame the flavors to take it on a journey through the palate, and that sort of use of stems. And we'll play around again with that next year and see, or this year I should say, and see, you know, what other journey we can take it on, and try and make it a better wine each year. But I think this is a nice example of what the UK can do with Pinot at the moment, in that it can be a style of its own. It doesn't have to sort of pretend to be these very sort of generous, big Burgundian Pinots, but they can be these happy in their own clothes of these light red, crunchy, fresh, vibrant reds.
I mean, this should be a great English red wine, and a red wine to introduce to somebody who gets put off by the big bold reds that you get from Spain and get from all these hot climate regions, because this is just the opposite of that. It's just really, really lovely fruit character to it. That's what I'm enjoying about it. And you've got the backbone of the acidity to give it some defining edge, and you've got the texture there. And it's just very pleasing. It's a rewarding wine to drink, is how I describe this.
Everyone wants a rewarding wine. Everyone wants to feel rewarded when they're drinking wine.
Why else are we doing this?
Yeah, I want to reward myself as well as drinking wine. Yeah, brilliant. Well, if I've done that, that's brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, Guy. Yeah, it's again an exciting wine. It's already been released, and yeah, it's selling well, and it's amazing, actually. Sort of, we're not able to make a lot of red wine in this country, but when we do, and when we get it right, it's one of the most popular wines that we sell. Actually, most people cannot make enough red wine in the UK to service the customers. Yeah, which is great.
No, good work. It's enjoyable. So let's right, go carry on.
We've come to the last one. And this is the one, so we'll just explain as well. So this is it's the only one with a slightly different label. It doesn't have the fox on. Two reasons for that really is that there's a bit more of a story to this wine that we wanted to try and convey on the label. So it's got a bit of text about that. I'll just rinse mine.
Do you want to go with the title? Tell us about that, and then
so it's called Solena. And so Solena is a bit of play on the word Solera, which we did want to use, but it's a protected term, so we couldn't call it Solera. And for those that don't know, Solera is a system of maturing wines that comes from many places, but probably best known from Jerez, where they make sherry, and it's a way of creating reserve wines in your cellar that isn't just one homogeneous set of tank of reserve wine, but is in different layers of different ages of reserve wine. And what they do is they make a new wine every year, and then they blend with the different levels of reserve wine to release a limited release of a non-vintage or multi-vintage wine, that then, because of these aged wines, has a deep complexity and offers, there's no other way to sort of get that richness and depth into a wine other than what comes with time. And this is really a wine that is about what time can do to wine. And it comes really from the fact that I'd worked with, this is made with Ortega, a variety that grows quite well in this country. And the nice thing about this story is that it's a nice connection between my predecessor at Vagabond, a guy called Gavin Monterey, who is now in Australia. But when he handed over the baton, literally the baton was a barrel of skin contact Ortega wine that he had made in 2018, but he'd made it by putting the skins inside the barrel. For those that don't make wine, it's very easy to get skins inside a barrel. It's then very hard to get the wine out of the barrel afterwards, because the skins become a bit of a problem, and to separate the wine from the skins. And bearing in mind that we've got no forklifts or big machines or anything in Battersea, it took me all day to get this wine out of the barrel by fiddling around with siphons and this and that. So we've got about 150 litres of Gavin's wine out of this barrel. But what we didn't want to do was we decided we didn't want to just sell it as a here today, gone tomorrow wine that we would bottle, and it would be lovely, but it's gone now. And then we thought it would be a nice story to create this ongoing story of wine, where so in 2021, I made some skin contact Ortega, made 3 barrels worth, and then we blended that with Gavin's 2018, and we released 500 bottles to the market, and then we kept back 2 barrels of reserve wine of that blend. And then this last year, 2022, I made again 3 barrels of skin contact Ortega, and then I blended it with some of the reserve barrels that we had. And then we will be releasing 800 bottles in October, and we have now kept back 2 barrels. But crucially, the 2 barrels now we have is one is of 2022 wine, and one is of the blend of 2021, 2018. It sounds a bit complicated, but it's easier for me to show you when we're standing in front of the barrels in Battersea. But essentially what it means is that we're testing how far we can age this Ortega, something that I always thought we could do when working with Adrian at Westwell, which I was lucky to do for a year or so. And we always clicked on our perception of Ortega as an age-worthy wine, because it comes from Riesling, crucially, which has, this history of age-worthiness. And so each year we're going to keep doing this and keep making a new wine. We're going to start introducing floor aging as well, where you age the wine under a film of yeast in an untopped barrel, and experiment with the aging. I'm a bit of a sherry file or sherry nut, and I'd say to bring those concepts to the UK and experiment with that sort of thing is something that's really exciting to me. And so this wine is a really lovely sort of story of basically being outward looking, not sort of inward looking at the UK, but looking outward, looking at history of wine, other wines that excite us, and taking some of those ideas and seeing how we can integrate them and play with them, and what influence it can have on our winemaking. And again, another experiment. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. Maybe it won't work at all, and we'll find out that Ortega can't really age beyond about 5 years. But until then, we'll keep making it, and every release will have a little bit of every vintage that's ever been made of this wine. So that's the nice story of it. And you see,
a way of tying it in, though, as you said, like using that as the story and as the name, then you've got the link back to where it comes from. It's quite literally a full circle. So yes, talk me through the wine.
Yeah, I'm just on that. I mean, stories for me are what sells wine at the end of the day. You know, there's millions of bottles of actor in a wine. Why a customer wants to buy it is because of the story, and that's what connects them to the wine. Yeah, in the glass you'll see sort of a lovely golden amber color, and that comes from the skin contact element of the wine. This is 100% skin contact, not like the Diosmia that's a small fraction. And so that creates this rich, deep color, and that's again furthered by oak aging. Aging will make wines go deeper in color. And what's nice is that there is fruit there, but it's quite developed in its nature. So you get this sort of tangerines, a lot of sort of Christmassy sort of fruits like the satsumas and things like that. But then it's sort of the theme continues with a bit of Christmas spice as well, and all these flavors coming from the skins. And then little sort of like marmalade flavors are what comes with sort of time. Again, it's sort of time doing its slow sort of progression on the wine, and allowing these flavors to show themselves. And these are just flavors you can't get just from making a wine straight off the bat. And so it creates this experience of a wine where you're getting flavors you're not used to, and then framing all that is that still the fresh acidity of Ortega, the texture that is quite tannic. There's a grip to it from the skin contact nature, but that sort of frames these flavors and gives them a sort of vehicle by which they can sort of develop on the palate. And again, food-wise, this we put on the bottle to pair with, I think, aged Comté, and that's and I do genuinely believe it pairs that specifically with Comté, this nutty, fatty cheese. I find cheese incredibly hard to pair wine with. I know there's sort of obvious pairing such as, you know, port and Stilton and things like that, but actually I find a lot of red wines don't work with cheese. I find that white wines work occasionally sometimes, but actually I find these orange wines and cheese, sort of a Christmas wine, an autumnal wine with cheese boards and those richer foods is a really wonderful thing as a sort of something that heightens the both things. It's a bit of a premium one, this one, the limited release, and the cost of sort of aging the wine and things like this means this comes in a little bit puncher of £40 retail, but the flavors and the textures and the experience you get of drinking this wine is not something you can get any other way. So what do you think?
Well, what I'm really intrigued by is just, again, how smooth it is, how soft it is, and it's got a nice body to it. There's a good bit of depth there. You've still got all of the fruit retained, but I mean, it's great to hear you talk about the story behind it. This is something what I think makes wine so great is the stories, is what the winemaker puts into the wine, and how you develop that process. And you've just explained that, and with such a great name that relates back to it. I think it just adds to it. And in regards to the wine, again, this is just another very easy drinking wine. It's very smooth. It's actually quite subtle with its flavors. There's not too much that leaps out to you. It's almost like I've got to search for a little bit because it's just very well rounded. And smooth, I think, would be a succinct way of summing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it drinks very much like a sort of velvety red wine. I know it's not red, but it has that velvety tannin thing going on, and a body that sort of coats the palate nicely, and that sort of carries generously these flavors through the experience. But yeah, if you shut your eyes and thought about sort of what the feel of it is more of a red wine in its sort of textures than something come from a white grape.
Well, Jose, thank you so much for sending these wines through. I mean, it's great to sit down with you
Pleasure.
again after, you know, making the short film, the Urban Wine Part 2 that we did.
Yeah.
What's coming next for you? Like, quick sum up.
Well, we are 2 weeks away from harvest, I think. It's
Yeah.
been so we spoke about 2022 being an amazing year. 2023 has been a slightly more challenging growing year, and we've had some good sunshine in September to ripen the grapes up, but we're now getting into a bit of rain, so it's going to be panic stations, and everyone's going to be holding their nerve and seeing what we can get. But we currently do. We released 9 different wines last year in 2022, and we're sort of at a point now where we're happy with that range. And what we've got sort of we obviously didn't have time to taste them all today, but we've got sort of some more varietal character wines where we do a straight sort of Bacchus, a straight Ortega, a still Rosé. We're going to actually now look to our biggest problem now is that we sell out too quickly. We were sold out of these wines. Projections are by about February, so now we're going to start trying to build up numbers a little bit so that we can actually keep getting some foremost and to keep experimenting, but in the framework of the range that we've currently got, that we're sort of quite happy with. It showcases a nice breadth and depth of what we can do with English wine. We've got a few wines that we'll carry on experimenting with each year, and other wines that we'll just tinker on the edges with. We'll sort of get used to. So yeah, hopefully that's a sort of nice portfolio, and then we'll keep sort of growing with that.
Well, Jose, thank you so much for sending these wines through. Thank you for sitting down. We had a little bit of distortion at the end there, but on the whole, I mean, what a great tasting, and thank you.
Yeah, well, look, thanks, Guy. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for taking the time to sort of sit down and explore the Vagabond wines with me. It's nice to have your support, and yeah, look forward to catching up sometime soon as well.
Pleasure.